Well, it's that time of year again. We often have our traditions for the holidays, whether it be watching old Christmas specials from our childhood, like Will Vinton's Claymation Christmas. I really should review that sometime. Airing your list of grievances at the Festivus dinner.
I got a lot of problems with you people!
And of course, vinyl records, which seems to be becoming its own tradition for this channel. I already discussed my favorite holiday album, Stax Soul Christmas, with the History of Rock crew. Last year I went through James Brown's Christmas album. So let me see what else I have in my collection to view. Phil Spector's A Christmas Gift for You. Yeah, I know, he's the subject of a lot of controversy these days, but in the early 60s, you could not overstate his innovation in production. In 1963, he was riding high from the success of the Ronettes' Be My Baby on his own Phyllis label, and had previous success with the Crystals and Soxx the Blue Jeans, featuring a yet uncredited Darlene Love, and all backed up by the legendary Wrecking Crew. Late 63, Phil put together a full LP of Christmas songs, using his roster of artists, hoping it would be a successful year-end Christmas album. Unfortunately, the album was released on November 22nd, 1963, the same day President Kennedy was assassinated. Talk about a bad omen.
I was depressed, and the country was, and no one was in a Christmas mood.
But that didn't stop Brian Wilson from calling it his favorite album of all time. And throughout the 60s, the single songs from the album gradually got more and more airplay, making the limited copies rare collector's items. So in 1972, Phil finally re-released the album on the Beatles' Apple label, and it became an enormous success and a Christmas staple.
I've decided now that Apple's the best company to release it on.
In fact, this year it re-entered the charts at a peak position of number 10. Not a bad showing for a nearly 60-year-old album. I'll get into some more history later. Let's spin this baby and see how it sounds. Now, because we're all busy this year, my History of Rock crew wasn't able to meet me in person for this review. Fortunately, we did meet online so that we could listen to the album together.
Sorry, you're not boring me, JT. I'm just tired. I'm like 2 hours of sleep.
I know. I talk too much.
If I fall asleep at all, I apologize. Alexa, don't talk to me. Alexa, stop. Hold on. I think someone's home. Hello? Is anyone home? Nope. It's my Alexa.
This is all going in the review, by the way.
She talks to me. She talks to me.
Sure, she does.
Sure.
Yeah.
She's talking to me.
Before we get into the music self, I got a rant about this particular cover. What is the deal with this cutaway? If you go on Amazon or Spotify, you can see the full cover. Simple enough with all the featured artists emerging from Christmas boxes. But here, the Ronettes are cut out, including Ronnie Spector. Yeah, you know, the woman who sang lead on Be My Baby. I mean, she's only one of the most famous singers in music history. Who thought this was a good idea? Was being able to see that the record was green a bigger selling point than showing Ronnie Spector's face? And even then, why didn't they just move the cutaway to the Christmas boxes? Let this be an indication of how badly these artists were treated, and apparently are still being treated by record companies. Okay, now that we got that out of the way, let's listen to the first track, Darlene Love singing White Christmas. Yes, we all know the Drifters version that appeared in Home Alone, but if you saw my Soul Christmas review, you'll know that my actual favorite version of the song is Otis Redding's cover. It's got Booker T and the MGs performing along with the Marquee horns, producing a very warm, mellow sound without much reverb or studio effects. This version is kinda like that, only the exact opposite. Yes, we've got that iconic wall of sound, layers of keyboards, guitars, percussion, orchestration.
I definitely like how the sound is just layered. Music, instruments, voice, everything.
And reverb. Lots and lots of reverb.
Almost at times there's too much sound. It's almost a little boomy, like muddy.
Yeah, I agree. To be honest, Phil Spector's wall of sound is kinda hit or miss for me. Sometimes it sounds big and lush, other times it's really hard to hear everything.
Sometimes it just sounds like a lot of noise in the reverb and it's just very cavernous.
I'm really not bothered by, like, the boominess of it all, mainly because I've, like, listened to this kind of stuff, like, a million times. I also thought that was just how everything sounded back then.
Yeah, that was, in the early 60s, that was a thing. Phil Spector definitely started it and pioneered it, and everybody did it at that point. But that doesn't stop Darlene Love from delivering a spirited lead vocal. Initially Darlene Wright, she was the lead singer of the Blossoms, who became more known for session work than charting singles.
I changed my name from Darlene Wright to Darlene Love.
I still dug the vocals and has that old school feel.
And we gotta give props to the Wrecking Crew. Hal Blaine on drums, Ray Pullman on bass, Tommy Tedesco on guitar, and Leon Russell on piano. Yes, that Leon Russell.
Leon played on practically every track on the Christmas album, as he did on practically all of the single records.
Also, Jack Nitzsche was their arranger. And believe it or not, Sonny and Cher contributed percussion and backup vocals respectively. Apparently Brian Wilson attempted to sit in on piano, but Phil found his playing ability inadequate. I mean, when you got Leon Russell in the studio, what do you expect? But Brian would get his chance to work with the Wrecking Crew on Pet Sounds. Let's move on to Phil's star attraction, the Ronettes. The Ronettes consisted of sisters Ronnie and Estelle Bennett and cousin Nidra Talley. Ronnie was of course the star and would later marry Phil. The less said about their marriage, the better.
He said, either you go on the tour with the Beatles or you marry me. Because I had dated Lennon a few times. He was married.
Phil was a little jealous, probably.
But in the early days, Ronnie's voice shined through the radio, especially on this second track, a cover of Frosty the Snowman.
Frosty the Snowman was a happy, jolly soul.
I would actually cite this as the best version of the song. Not only was it featured in Goodfellas, along with a lot of Phil Spector tunes, it's driven by Hal Blaine's amazing drumming. In fact, if you listen carefully, you'll notice that Hal is playing the same drum pattern as Be My Baby, just at a faster tempo.
We would take a Be My Baby version and make it into Frosty the Snowman.
That was actually a lot better. It definitely had a better sound, less cavernous.
Next we have Bobby Soxx and the Blue Jeans. When you guys
Sounds
are
like
ready?
Bobby sucks. I mean, I'm not saying he does. I'm just saying it sounds like that.
We're sorry, Bobby. It's essentially Darlene Love and the Blossoms with singer Bobby Sheen. They had a hit with Spector's production in 1962 covering Zip-a-Dee-Doo-Dah. Yes, that Zip-a-Dee-Doo-Dah. However, Darlene sang lead vocals on their follow-up, Why Do Lovers Break Each Other's Hearts, still credited to Bobby Soxx. Here, Bobby sings The Bells of St. Mary, one of those old-timely Christmas songs that Bing Crosby covered. This is one of the weaker songs on this album. I can't hear a damn thing in this mix.
I can't hear him. The mix is terrible.
It's really bad.
But he has a pretty voice.
I mean, he's fine. It's just, you know...
I like him. He kind of sounds like Regis Philbin.
Phil Spector, what's going on here? I can't hear my voice! But now we can move on to another star attraction, the Crystals. But before we get into their tracks, we need to dive into a bit of their backstory because it gets a little weird. Phil Spector really didn't have much respect for his singers or artists. A producer not respecting their artist, that never happens. In his mind, his production was the focus, and the singers were nothing more than part of the orchestra. Phil didn't hold promoting their specific artist or band names in high regard. So when in 1962 it came time to record He's a Rebel, it was planned to be released under the Crystals name. The problem was the Crystals were out on tour, and Phil was under pressure to release the song before somebody else recorded it. So he brought in Darlene and the Blossoms to sing the song.
I knew it was going to be for a group he had in New York. And I went, this song ain't going to do nothing, no way. Let's just go in, take the money.
Yeah, Milli Vanilli were not the first artists to do that. When the Crystals heard the song for the first time on the radio, attributed to them, they were completely surprised. They now had to perform their single live, but lead singer Barbara Alston couldn't match Darlene's vocals, so lead vocal duties were handed to Dolores LaLa Brooks, who would remain their lead singer for the next few years.
I'm very good on stage, and I can take Darlene's voice and make it mine, but nobody would be dissatisfied.
This happened again with the song He's Sure the Boy I Love. Darlene confronted Phil about her own recording contract, and meanwhile, the Crystals were angry about Phil not keeping them in the loop. So Phil had promised Darlene the song to do Ron Ron, but this time he actually flew LaLa Brooks in to record the lead vocal and released it again under the Crystals' name. And to make matters even worse, the Crystals felt Phil was sidelining them for the Ronettes. I'm guessing showcasing his artists separately, including Darlene Love as a solo artist, was his way of smoothing things over. And the Crystals deliver an iconic cover of Santa Claus is Coming to Town. Yes, we all love Bruce Springsteen's cover from the 80s, but this is where he got the arrangement, including the memorable vocal tag. I believe this is the first time it was ever used.
So far, it's the best on this album, because everything flows better here than on the last song, especially the saxophone.
Yeah, that's Steve Douglas reprising his sax solo from To Do Ron Ron.
I like a lot of the parts, like Nick just said. I like the bells, the little tinkery toy part.
I do have to say, I don't consider LaLa Brooks to be quite as strong a singer as Ronnie or Darlene. I mean, she's essentially trying to sound like Darlene. But there is something very childlike and endearing about her performance. Sleigh Ride by the Ronettes has definitely become a Christmas classic. Those ding-a-ling backups and key changes are irresistible. I feel like more care was taken to the Ronettes' production.
The vocals are so precise on there, and they're so forward.
But also just, you can hear the drums, you can hear everything just a lot better.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like favoritism for the Ronettes.
Listening to it, there's something very endearing about Ronnie's voice.
There's a warm quality to it. Even though it's got a pinginess to it, it's very friendly.
Yeah, it's got that homely huskiness to it that I like.
Sleigh Ride continues to chart higher and higher every year. I wonder if it'll eclipse Be My Baby this year. Okay, so this next song is...
the Bare Naked Ladies totally destroyed all Christmas albums. 2014 came, and it was just all other Christmas albums should consider another holiday, because why even bother after that one?
Excuse me. What are you talking about?
We're not talking about the Bare Naked Ladies.
We're talking about Phil Spector's Christmas album.
Spector? I don't know anything about Spector, except for Rami Malek's performance.
He was in No Time to Die, not Spector.
But I gotta go. I was never here.
Okay.
How did she get on here?
I don't know. Where did she even come from?
Where do any of us come from? It's a Marshmallow World isn't as instantly recognizable as the other songs. But Nick found it to be a nice surprise.
This one I've never actually heard until, just yesterday. Wonder why they don't play this that often on the radio. Or maybe they do and I just haven't listened.
I would definitely say Side 1 is a solid collection of tunes. Side 2, not nearly as memorable, but it does have its moments. Darlene absolutely dominates here, including the album's lone original composition, Christmas, Baby Please Come Home, co-written by Phil Spector himself, along with longtime collaborators Jeff Barry and Ellie Greenwich. The emotion of the song is so moving. It's melancholic but uplifting. For the song's coda, Leon Russell plays some amazing piano licks, and the juxtaposition between him and Darlene is a knockout.
It was so exhausting. We were all so tired by the time we were so into it with Leon that he actually, as a joke, fell off the piano, playing down to the end and then just disappearing. He's just laid on the floor for about 10 minutes.
I really like that. That's on the top.
Yeah, it's definitely up there.
It's another one that gets heavy airplay, and for good reason.
Darlene would make a tradition of performing this song on David Letterman, and it was always a welcome sight to see her back. Earlier in the record, Darlene and the Blossoms lead a spirited version of Winter Wonderland.
Nice harmony and everything.
These actually might be the best harmonies so far.
I think this is the one that always gets heavy airplay, too.
I would say that's one of my favorites.
It's a really good one.
Yeah, that's a thumbs up.
The rest of side 2 doesn't really hold my attention. The Ronettes kickoff track, I Saw Mommy Kissing Santa Claus, is their weakest effort on this album.
What is happening in the bass line? It might be the reverb, but I feel like we're fighting with each other, the bass and the drums.
Yeah, this whole track is like a big thing of whatever.
The Crystals also feel underwhelming on this cover of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. And here comes kind of the problem I have with this album. Everything, after a while, kind of starts to sound
the same.
Samey.
I hate this. This is my least favorite.
Really? It certainly can't hold a candle to the California Raisins singing it. I'm gonna see if Nick remembers this joke.
Yeah.
You know what? Call me a cab.
Hey man, you're a cab.
Yes!
See? I remember.
You guys are idiots.
I do kind of find their rendition of Parade of the Wooden Soldiers kind of interesting in a childlike Nutcracker setting.
I don't know, it's kind of growing on me.
I believe LaLa Brooks is singing this as a duet on the bridge, but I can't find any information on whether this is the Blossoms, it's the other members of the Crystals. Seriously, if anybody knows this information, please comment below. Bobby Soxx returns for Here Comes Santa Claus, and at least you can hear him better in this mix.
This is actually one of my favorite Christmas songs.
Just in general?
Yeah, just in general, yeah.
And by the way, Bobby Soxx would be quickly dropped after the new year. Bobby Sheen would later go on to work with the Coasters.
Regis Philbin.
When does Regis Philbin ever sound like this?
This is what he would sound like if he sang.
The $1 million question. Here comes who? A. Santa Claus.
That's
B.
what this guy sounds like.
Fidel Castro.
What you're doing sounds like a singing voice.
C. Rich Evans. Well, we now come to the album's closer, and it's none other than Phil Spector himself doing Silent Night.
Hide your guns.
This should be interesting. I've never heard Phil sing before. Let's listen.
Hello, this is Phil Spector. It is so difficult at this time to say...
Riveting. I mean, this sounds more like something you'd send for a fan club album, not the last track of a commercial record where you can talk about how great a producer you are. It does kind of leave the album on a low note, but despite that, I would say that Phil Spector's Christmas Gift for You is worth it. It's kind of amazing how so many typical elements of Phil Spector's sound have become synonymous with Christmas. Bells, glockenspiel, sleigh bells, and just those layers of instruments. It is nice to have some female representation on this one as well. Ronnie Spector's got some high highs. Darlene Love absolutely crushes it.
Yeah.
The Crystals have their moments, and Bobby Soxx, God bless him, he's trying.
Yeah.
I definitely dug the album for the most part. My one critique is, and I know it was the sign of the times, the boominess of the sound sometimes, the mix. The girls were fabulous. I definitely liked the more popular songs. Just for the couple of gems on there, I would give it a goldfish.
It's a Christmas album, but it's a nice sounding Christmas album. There were definitely some tracks that could have benefited from being in the oven a little longer. I give it a B+, a goldfish.
I'm glad I bought it on vinyl. It's a good one to pull out at Christmas time. It's not a record I would listen to year-round, but as a holiday record, Phil Spector's A Christmas Gift for You will get a marginal goldfish from me.
I would say Frosty the Snowman was definitely a standout.
I'm going to go outside the box and say Marshmallow World.
Santa Claus is Coming to Town.
Definitely Sleigh Ride.
I thought I was going to include Frosty the Snowman as the essential track, but I think you have to give it to the original song performed by Darlene Love, Christmas, Baby Please Come Home. It just evokes so much of the holiday feeling, both the festive and the melancholic. For so many people, the holidays can be very emotional, and maybe there is someone you wish would please come home. But Darlene taps into that blues gospel feeling of singing to lift her spirits. And I'm hoping this video was able to lift your spirits as well. It's been an amazing year. Thank you so much, everyone, for your continued support. Looking forward to the new year. I'm looking forward to finishing up Pink Floyd album reviews. A special thanks to Nick and Ashley, Emily too, for the silly cameo. And you know what? Maybe Nick can leave us with some wise words for 2023.
Don't eat yellow snow. Watch out where the Huskies go. Don't you eat that yellow snow.
I don't think I can top that.
Yeah.